Hi, everybody. I'm McCall Gordon. I'm a certified gentle sleep coach. I also teach at Antioch University in the counseling psychology program. I am also the owner and founder of Little Live Wires. It's my sleep coaching practice, and I tend to work exclusively with more intense, alert, sensitive babies, but I can talk about any babies. So let's go. Today we're gonna talk a little bit about sleep and everything that happens around sleep and what you may have heard and what you don't have to worry about here in this first 6 months of life. I'm probably going to be saying some things that are going to be kind of the opposite of what you may have been reading or hearing or seeing on social media. But I hope that it makes you feel actually more hopeful and more confident once we're done. So this is everything you need to know about sleep, just about, or as much as I can cram into a half hour or so. I've been having troubles with my presentation here. Okay, so first thing, we're going to kind of unknit what you may have already heard a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to throw it all out, but I can tell you that a lot of what the sleep books and social media and different programs tell parents is really not in keeping with what we know about development and small little babies. I don't quite know why they tell parents some of the things they do, because honestly, I'm increasingly really convinced that the advice that's out there is actually making parents a lot more worried and a lot more anxious than they actually need to be. So I don't quite get the benefit of why we're making parents quite so worried about sleep. So right now you can just take a deep breath because I'm going to actually lower the bar on what you need to do with sleep. So first of all, let's look at a lot of what you might have heard or what people might be telling you. So advice routinely says, number one, watch out for bad habits right away, pretty much from birth. There's a short list of things that you should not be doing about sleep because it'll cause bad habits. The second thing is if you don't start sleep training super early, it's going to be harder later. Some almost say impossible. I don't understand that. So you better start early. The earlier, the better. You also may be hearing like most babies are sleeping through the night by 3 months. Sometimes people say by 2 months, babies can sleep 8 hours at a time. There's a couple of books out there that say that babies can sleep 12 hours at a stretch by 8 weeks of age, or maybe, a little bit later, sometime between 2 and 3 months. And then we often hear that the sleep training information is research-based, safe, and effective for pretty much all infants, that we don't have to worry about it. So we're going to kind of go through each one of these, one by one to see what they say. So the other gist of the sleep advice that is common is, number one, that sleep is a learned behavior, that the only way self-soothing is learned is if parents will withhold any help, and three, that if a baby is crying and then they fall asleep, that they've learned self-soothing. So we kind of need to pull that apart in terms of like, what does self-soothing actually mean? Now, if as an adult, you or I become really, really upset and we're crying or we're just really, really upset, there's a huge list of things we can do to make ourselves feel better. We can talk with a friend, we can go to a movie, we can go on a walk, we can have a cocktail, whatever it is. There's lots of things that we can do. And all of those things take planning and thought and motor skill and a lot of different skills that we don't even think about. For babies, it's the same thing. I mean, their list is shorter, but they have to be able to do something to make themselves feel better. Here's a key important point. The younger the baby, the fewer things they have at their disposal, the fewer tools they have in their self-soothing toolbox. So if we think about what is self-soothing, a lot of the advice kind of equates sleep with self-soothing, and that is not it at all. Sleep technically could be the byproduct of self-soothing, but sleep itself is not self-soothing. Self-soothing is not equated with the baby stopping crying. That doesn't add up. So if we think about a child in distress, they have to be able to do something else to make them feel better. So at a young infant, let's say 8-month-old, 7-month-old, they have the motor skills to get their hand to their mouth, or to suck on the pacifier, or to turn their head away, or to look at something else that distracts them. They can rub their hands together, they can rub their head, they can do a few things to help themselves feel better. A little 2-month-old baby can't even get their hand in the vicinity of their face reliably to be able to suck on it or do things like that. They really don't have the motor skills to turn away. They just don't have the skills, really, to really be able to manage very much distress. They have to be able to plan actions. And again, a lot of this doesn't kick in till about halfway through the first year. Babies can self-soothe. They can do some things when the amount of distress is manageable. If we blow them out of the water with crying, you have exceeded what they can manage. I call these windows of tolerance. So the amount of distress that a baby can capably manage on their own. The younger the baby, the tinier the window. The older they get, the more that they can maybe possibly handle because they have more options, they have more skills. So when they're really little, we want to keep that distress super, super minimal. If they are screaming, there is no way they're going to be able to calm down without help. So we help them. So I consider self-soothing and even sleep, but mostly self-soothing, a little like teaching a kid to ride a bike, right? We do not tell a toddler, hey kid, here's a 10 speed, good luck with that, I'll be over here, right? If I teach you, you're not going to learn to do it by yourself. First of all, we wait until the child is absolutely ready for a bike, right? We know they have to be tall enough, they have to have a sense of balance, all kinds of stuff has to be in place. Then when they get on that bike, what do we do as parents? We hold on for dear life while they're figuring it out. We hold on like crazy because we don't want them to just fall over at the first moment. No. And we're not going to also go take them out on some crazy bumpy road, right? We're just going to be soft and smooth and easy, no hazards in the way. So we're going to make it easy for them, and then we're going to hold on. And then as they start getting the hang of it, we can let go a little bit, and then we grab back on. And then we let go a little bit, then we grab on. And the better they get, the more we can let go. Okay, same exact thing. I don't know, really, in the rest of childhood, we never tell parents, hey, if you do this for them, they'll never learn to do it for themselves. It's bananas. So self-soothing is the same thing. We hold on, we help them regulate till they are more able to do it themselves. So in these early couple of months, early 6 months really, parents are the regulator for the baby. We have to do for them what they are not able to do for themselves. So keeping them calm, keeping them able to navigate, helping them navigate between awake and asleep, between distress and soothing, that is our job. We are the external regulator while their internal systems, their internal wiring is really still very much coming online. When babies are born, after birth, their nervous system is incredibly immature. And so we are helping to prime that system by helping them a lot. So don't worry about helping your child stay calm, wake up, go to sleep, all of that. That is the absolute best thing we can do. Okay, 1 second. My Canva has not been cooperating. So self-soothing takes time to develop. Sleep also takes time to develop. Sleep is not just a skill, it's actually resident in the brain. Sleep goes through stages of development just like the child does. You actually have less control over this process than most of the advice is going to lead you to believe. Almost all the sleep advice that's out there kind of tells you that however your baby sleeps is a reflection on you. That if you just do A, B, and C, your baby's going to sleep like magic. This could not be further from the truth. It verges on just being a lie. Because it's like walking, right? We don't expect little ones to walk. It has to develop. Sleep develops and it goes through stages. So let's talk about what some of those stages are. So birth to 2 months, brain is extremely immature. For the first 2 to 3 months, sleep gets distributed across 24 hours because there's a gland in the brain called the pineal gland, which is the one that reacts to sunlight. It starts helping a child put most of the sleep at nighttime and less in the daytime. That does not even come online. It is not available until 2 or 3 months. So you can do everything you want in those first 2 months, but your baby is still going to distribute their sleep across 24 hours because that's what their brain is going to do. Again, their ability to self-regulate is almost non-existent, and their window for distress is teeny, teeny, tiny. 3 to 4 months, so you might start seeing some actual day-night patterns, a little bit more at night, a little bit less during the day. That's fantastic. This is that kind of calm before the storm. At this age, babies who might have been kind of wakeful might start stretching out the ability to stay awake a little longer, and people do a little happy dance and say, yay, we're not even going to have to sleep train. Or if your baby's not this and your friends are saying that their child is sleeping 8 to 10 hours, know that it might not stay that way. I mean, seriously, there's this whole thing about like my friend's baby's sleeping 12 hours straight. Okay, yes. Number one, they are likely wired that way. So babies who are sleepers come into the world as good sleepers. It really almost doesn't matter what the parents do, that child is going to sleep. Or if they're not sleeping, if there's a moment they're not sleeping great and a parent just does a tiny little nudge, that child just gets in line and everything is great. That has to do with wiring. And actually that is a lot more rare than people think. I'm sure it feels sometimes like everybody's baby is sleeping great and yours is the only one that's not, but I promise you, really, really great sleeping babies are rarer than you think. And a lot of babies who were sleeping well, they stop sleeping well around the 4-month regression. So just don't worry about it. So then at 4 months is the big 4-month regression. So let's talk about that because it's usually what folks in PEPs want to talk about. The 4-month regression is a massive burst of brain development and brain growth. This is the biggest jump in brain development that will happen again. There's only 2 times in life, 4 months and at adolescence. The brain just goes bananas with rewiring and the proliferation of neurons and connections. What does that mean? That means that your baby's bandwidth for, if it was small before, it's even smaller now. They just don't have the bandwidth for change or stress or any of that. Oddly, I would say 90 to 100% of the sleep books suggest starting sleep training at 3 to 4 months. And I don't really understand why, because 4 months can be the worst moment to try to sleep train. I'm going to really just lay my cards out right now. If you can wait to sleep train until after 6 months, the idea is that your child is going to have more skills in place. All this regression chaos is going to have settled down. Then sleep makes a jump. We'll talk about naps in a minute, but all these crazy small daytime naps start consolidating to 3. You can actually have a real bedtime that's reliable and predictable. You can actually start asking them to go 5, 6, however many hours without a feed. All that capacity happens after 6 months. The idea is if you can make it through by doing what works in this first 6 months, you may find that sleep training is actually easier and faster and less stress, just because your kiddo has a little bit more going for them in terms of skills and development. So during the 4-month regression, a lot of times, even babies who were sleeping well, all of a sudden it starts going haywire, and parents will say, "What have we done?" They think it's their fault. It's not their fault. It's your baby's brain. So know that that's going to happen. Know that it's temporary. Ride it out as best you can, and we'll talk a little bit about how to do that. But working on sleep training now, if you've tried it and it's not working, again, it's not your fault. It's okay to table it, take it up later. You are not making any kind of terrible mistakes. So what's normal sleep? Again, I alluded to this in the last slide. What's What's normal sleep for a pre-6-month-old baby? Naps might be short. A half-hour nap, it's not great, but we're not shooting for hour, 2-hour naps at this age. Now they're going to go in and out in about a 90 minute to 2 hour cycle. So naps might be short, and that's okay as long as they're frequent. So littler babies, 0 to 2 months ish, really only can be awake for about an hour before they need a nap. Once they start hitting 3 months ish, maybe they can go 90 minutes. We really don't want them awake more than 90 minutes, and I'll tell you why. At each age, a child has kind of a ballpark for how long they can stay awake before they need a rest, before they need to log out and let their brain decompress. There's actual research that shows that naps help a child consolidate and almost like integrate whatever it was they were just doing. So if they're practicing a skill, if they were looking at different cool images and everything, when they go to sleep, their brain kind of goes, and stores it all and encodes it all or whatever. So a rest is really great, about every 90 minutes. If any children go too far past that little window, they need a break, but their body kind of goes, okay, I guess we're staying up. And they kind of release chemicals in a way to help them stay awake. And it's like you've given them a cup of coffee. Then all sleep after that can be harder to get because those chemicals are in their system, like thinking they've got to stay awake. So sometimes just staying in that nice, predictable rhythm can really be helpful. One caveat, and I'm going to talk about temperament later, but it comes in right now. If you've been waiting for sleepy signals and you have a kiddo that is really nap averse, if you've ever said it's like she has FOMO, do not wait for sleepy signals. Watch the clock and just experiment. See what happens on a day if you say, okay, I'm just going to watch the clock and I'm going to try for a nap, whether they look like they need it or not, and just see what happens. Just make notes of it. Be a little detective on your kiddo. Sometimes just hitting that window. I mean, some babies just have terrible or non-existent or late sleepy signals. I had a child that if I waited for her to yawn, we were toast. Wasn't going to happen. She was so far into her second wind already. So I wish I had known some of this. That would have really helped me. And I would have been like, you know what? You've been awake for an hour 20. I'm going to start winding you down for a nap. Just take a couple of days and see what happens if you have one of these really kind of awake kiddos. Motion sleep, contact sleep is where it is at. If you've been like saying, okay, the books say I have to put them down in the crib for a nap and it's not happening, don't worry about it. It's fine to continue to try for maybe one nap because then you're just like laying in that track for your kiddo. But say you try for the first nap or two and they just didn't sleep. And so now they're kind of sleep deprived. Hold them, rock them, bounce them, whatever works. It's a lot less stress for you and it helps them get some sleep. For very small babies, being near you is evolutionarily kind of important. Being away from you, really separate, I think sets off little alarm bells for them. So if you can keep them close, I can't say this strongly enough, do not worry about bad habits in babies under 6 months. Babies do not have the cognitive capacity to form memories like that or form habits that you can't just easily shift when they have more going for them. This idea that if you do stuff now, you'll never be able to whatever XYZ is a complete and utter myth. I don't know why we tell parents that. Do what works. It's less stress on you. You might find that everything's a lot easier if you just do what works. Drowsy but awake also can be totally impossible. I don't know if you're laughing right now, but so many parents are like, yeah, I tried drowsy but awake. Why my child was not having it? No, of course not. It doesn't compute for them. Again, you can keep gently trying. There is nothing wrong with seeing who your baby is and what they are able to do. If you can do it and they do, then they're fine. Awesome. Great. If you do it and they can't, no big deal. Just try again at another time. The idea is we really need to remove the have-tos and the kind of benchmarks or the requirement that you achieve something in these first 6 months. Really, this is about you getting to know yourself as a parent and you getting to know your baby, because every baby's different, and they might not fit into the mold that the books are talking about. Okay, so before I dive into what does the research say about sleep training, let me say that for some families and some babies, you can sleep train early and it works and it's kind of not super stressful. It wasn't a big deal. Listen, awesome, great. What I want to try to get across today is if it doesn't work for you, or if you don't feel that it's right, you really don't have to. The advice out there makes it seem like you have to. And that's where this research piece comes in. You do not have to. So, first of all, there is literally no research on the have to part. Most of the research will say that about 25% of babies have sleep problems. And my question is, then why are we telling 100% of parents they have to sleep train if only 25% actually end up having sleep problems? There's actually, and there's also no research on the need to start early. Literally, there's none. There was a study that even said there's no research that says that it's any better to start early. So again, okay to wait. Most of the sleep training research isn't even done on babies under 6 months. There's very, very little. In terms of crying it out approaches, there's virtually none. Like virtually none on babies under 6 months. Most of the research on crying interventions is even done on like toddlers and preschoolers, or they have some babies like one study said we used children age 4 to 52 months, and then didn't say how many babies were in that group. 52 months is a 4.5-year-old, and then they didn't like break it out. We don't know how the babies did, versus the toddlers or the preschoolers. So we don't really know a lot about using actual typical sleep training interventions with babies under 6 months. The research that's out there on really young babies is more, they talk about it in terms of prevention, right? We want to prevent sleep problems from happening. And again, remember, only 25% have sleep problems. So prevention, almost always, if there was like a delay in response, it was like a minute, maybe 4 minutes or 5 minutes. It was super, super tiny, number one. And number two, almost all of these were done in a context of a ton of support. So the parents met with a clinician and there was a history form taken and then a plan, and then they got lots of support and follow-up, and they could ask questions. A bunch of them were even done in an inpatient setting. So the parents, or at least the mom, went and got a lot of mental health support. A nurse like took the baby and took care. I mean, it was like not even close to the context that we do sleep training here in the United States, in terms of like you buy a book and you're home alone trying to figure this out. The research, some critiques also of it said, we're not even sure what part of all of that worked. Was it the intervention? Was it all the support? Was it being able to ask questions? So the research on young babies and sleep training, the jury's very much out on that. The other issue was that in a lot of these, the intervention didn't really stick. So parents would have had to have done it again anyway. Okay, does this mean you can't do anything? No, it doesn't. There are things we can do. So here's what you can do. Get sleep in any way that works. Feeding to sleep, rocking to sleep, swings, bouncy seats, it's at least for naps. That's all good. Make sure feeding is on track, because at this age, feeding is as important to sleep as anything else. Now, you can rule out so if your baby is fussy, like there's normal waking and then there's like a lot of waking, and then there's normal fussy, and then there's like a lot of fussy. So if you know in your gut that your kiddo is more unsettled, less sleep, not sleeping well, screaming, like screaming in pain, that's not typical, right? So it's okay to really push to get that stuff figured out. What we typically see are things like silent reflux, which is like baby heartburn. So they're not going to spit up, but they will arch their back while they're nursing. They will scream when you lay them down flat. They will kind of nurse best when they're half drowsy. They sleep better when they're sort of on an incline, in your arms, in a seat, kind of like that. That should be checked out. Food intolerance, like milk allergies, really impact kiddos. And then all those different kinds of nursing issues, lip tie, tongue tie, swallow issues. I would get all of those checked, or whatever of them ring true. Get those checked first, and then see what happens with sleep. And then you can gently practice putting them down, not all the way to sleep. So you can say, look, I'm going to feed you till you're 99% asleep, and then I'm going to lay you down and see if I can quickly pat you or put my hand on you to go the rest of the way to sleep. If they completely pop awake, that's not going to work, and you may have to try again later. But if you can do it, then that's great. Then the next time, try 98%. This is about like laying in skills without blowing anybody out of the water. My other thing is you really cannot create bad habits at this age. It's really not possible. It's okay for you to be the expert on your kiddo, and for you to just take time to figure out who they are and who you are, and learn and kind of do, kind of assess things as you go along. So just one last thing about temperament and sleep. So like I said before, some babies are just kind of wired. Most babies are on kind of the easygoing side. They're kind of chill. They go with the flow. You can lay them down and they'll play on the floor a little bit. Then there are other babies who are way more alert, way more on, harder to soothe, harder to read. They came into the world wired this way. And they don't tend to go along like most of the books say they will. So if you have one of these kiddos and you like, okay, I've been reading the books and it's like not even in the ballpark with my kid, you may have a child who's a little more alert and sensitive and intense. I call them little live wires because they're just kind of on all the time. If, like I said before, if you've ever said, yeah, they were like at birth really alert, or it's like she's worried she'll miss something if she goes to sleep, or sleep, that just won't sleep ever. These are the kids that I get as a coach that the mom will say, is it normal for a 3-month-old to be awake for 8 hours straight? Like, no, it's not. And harder to soothe. If this is you, like I said, sleep advice is probably not going to work. This is my website. I do have some information on temperament and sleep on there. I do recommend, I'm going to show you a couple of resources. Again, there's my email address if you need to email me. I do want to recommend this book, Good Night Sleep Tight by Kim West. I trained with her. She's got almost all of what I'm saying about the pre-6-month age is in this book. And then her sleep training approach is a gradual approach between leaving the room and kind of not doing anything. It's gradual. So you start right out giving lots of support, and then you back that support off over, a period of time. Really tolerable for both parents and kiddos. It makes a lot of sense, I think. So if you're interested in that information, check out the book. She has a great website just with great articles. So if you wanted to, search 4-month regression or sleep schedules or naps or anything, she has great short little articles and video responses on her website. She also has, of course, we all have Instagram and Facebook. So I encourage you, if you really have questions or issues, feel free, email me. But I hope this has been helpful, and congratulations with your baby. I hope you just sleep a ton. Thanks.